All right, we might get started. So, good evening, everyone. My name's Catriona, and I am the Extension and Engagement Team Leader here at ABRI, and we're based in Armidale in New South Wales in Australia. And joining me today, I have Boyd Gudex, who will be taking you through our ABRI Plan Completeness of Performance product. So, these webinars are Boyd.
Yep.
Thank you. These webinars are part of a series that we're running. So we've done the first three throughout January and earlier in Feb on an introduction to ABRI Plan and then collecting data for ABRI Plan. And we do have those recorded, and I will get them up on our YouTube channel and send the link to those that were registered, so you can review them if you haven't had a chance to, or if you didn't make it along in person. Today, we're talking about understanding completeness of performance, and then as part of the webinar series, we've got two more webinars that will happen in March, which are an introduction to single-step ABRI Plan. So we're going to look at how we use DNA in the ABRI Plan analysis as an extra source of information, and then we'll finish up on Wednesday, the 26th of March, with ABRI Plan into the future. And those webinars will take place at 7:30 p.m. GMT or 8:30 p.m. CET. So if you haven't signed up for the remaining two, we certainly had more people registered for the first four than the last two. Please feel free to sign up via the registration link for those last two. And just before we get started, some housekeeping. So please ensure that your microphone is on mute. That just stops us getting audio feedback while we're presenting. We are recording this webinar, so we will make sure that registrants are provided with a link, so you can either so that you can review that at your own leisure. And finally, questions welcome. So please either type into the chat and we will pause at an appropriate moment and answer those questions that have come through the chat. Or if you'd prefer to ask your question out loud, you can use the raise hand button to raise your hand, and we'll invite you to unmute your microphone and ask your question aloud. So with that, I will hand over to Boyd.
So thank you, Catriona, for that introduction. So as Catriona mentioned, we're going to be talking about the ABRI Plan Completeness of Performance product today. So going to cover what it is, how to interpret it, and how to improve it, so really how to use it. So that's a brief overview of what we're going to cover. And so going to start off with what is the Completeness of Performance product. So it's an ABRI product that assesses the quantity of pedigree and performance information that is submitted to ABRI Plan. So it's currently utilised by 5 breed societies based in the United Kingdom. I don't believe any of the wider Europe analyses currently utilise it. And there's also a whole pile in the Southern Hemisphere who also utilise it. So it is a paid product, and if anyone is interested in having it applied to their analysis, approach your breed society and get them to talk to ABRI about what we can do for you. So the reason we have this product is the quantity of data that is analysed in the ABRI Plan analysis is a key factor that influences the accuracy of the EBVs produced. So this is a great way of benchmarking what individual herds have submitted, and we will talk about how this can be used as we go on. So there's 2 major components of the COP system. We use COP for short, for Completeness of Performance. There's the report, and then there's also the star rating. And what I've actually graphed for the star ratings there on the left-hand side is the percentage of herds with each star rating from those 5 United Kingdom breed societies. So you can see that there's a wide variation in the amount of data submitted within each of these breed societies, and it flows through into this graph. So you have the very good reporters at 5-star and the not so good at down the other end. So the Completeness Performance Report provides a summary of the information submitted to breed plan. So we actually provide a range of statistics for animal details, so things like pedigree and dates of birth and that kind of stuff. We also do it for the various traits, the weight, the carcass, the birth, fertility, and other traits as well. So, and you can see a bit of an example there on the right-hand side of one of the summary tables there that is used to summarize what's going on for a particular herd. So the Completeness Performance Star Rating is calculated based on the proportion of the calves that are born in a fixed 5-year period that actually have performance recorded for each trait. So key part of that is, of course, we can only look at the calves that are registered with the society. So, you know, if not all calves are registered with the society, it is going to affect this. We also work on the 5-year period that ends 2 years prior to the report. That's the same as what we do for our percentiles and breed averages. The reason for that is 2-year-old animals have had an opportunity to be recorded for most traits. So it's a bit hard, say, if we were only going 1 year ago, there's no animals would have had a chance to be recorded for 600 day weight, for instance. So we go back to 2 years so we can get all the 600 day weights and all the scanning and all of that included in this analysis. Each herd receives a star rating on a 0 to 5 scale, and we do have half stars as well. And that summarizes the completeness of the performance information that is submitted. And it should be noted that individual breed societies, individual analyses have different criteria that they use to calculate their star ratings and scores within as well. So how do you actually access your Completeness of Performance report? It's available in the download area on Internet Solutions. Yeah, and it is produced every month. So following your breed plan analysis, every time it's run, we rerun the Completeness of Performance reports for all herds so that they're updated. And they're also all herds are also updated annually. It's usually July, whether or not the herd has submitted data or not, just to make sure it is completely up to date. So please contact your breed plan processing centre if you need help with logging into Internet Solutions to access it, or and that includes if you're unable to remember your password. So the star rating is, you can find it in your report on page 6, or some breed societies also display it on their on Internet Solutions on the member inquiry area. So we've got a beef shorthorn example here. You can see where the arrow is pointing to. That's you click on that and you can pull up that you want to see everything, say above 3.5 stars, all herds that are above 3.5 stars, and it will list them. And then of course you'll get all the listings of all the herds, and you can click on one and see a screen like what we've got on the right hand side. So how do we interpret or use our Completeness of Performance report? So when you get your report, the first few pages are introductory notes. So they're very similar to what we're describing here today, but in a bit more detail. And then we've got some summary tables and graphs. So we've got a table and a graph here that's the overall summary of the 5-year period. So you can see, if you can shows the same information really, but this one actually is split by year. This one shows the summary of that 5-year period, and you can see, for instance, that this herd hasn't recorded mature cow weight. Excuse me, as one you can see automatically there. And if the herd, for instance, sees that and goes, but I have been, I bet it's a bit of a hint that they should actually find that information and send it in, because it's not on in the analysis. We also have individual traits by calving year. So, and you can also in the tables split this by male and female, whereas the graphs are a combined thing. But again, you're getting to see what levels of performance recording are being submitted for each individual trait. And you can see through on this one, in this particular herd, they don't have much 200-day weight submitted between 2012 and 2014, but they actually have a quite a jump in 400-day weight at that time. That suggests that they probably weighed their calves later than normal, and they actually were 400-day weights rather than 200-day weights in that particular year, those particular years. So this is an example of the schedule that is used to calculate the COP score. So with the COP scores, it's actually difficult to get a 0 or a 1 star. So if we look at, and remembering that these change for different breeds, so may not be identical to what you have in your breed, but it is good for an example. If we had a herd that only recorded date of birth, sire and dam, sex ratio, well, they're recording the gender of their calves, so they're going to have sex ratio automatically, and they don't have scales, so they put their AI dates and calving ease in as well, because you don't need any equipment for that. Now, for most breed societies, things like date of birth, sire and dam are automatic, so we assume that they're going to get over 95% of them submitted, so they're going to score 10 for that, times that 10 by the multipliers, and that actually gives the maximum score because it's score 10. And likewise, we're going to assume that they're going to have roughly a 50-50 sex ratio in this scenario. So again, they're going to have maximum score there. And likewise for the AI date and calving ease, most breed societies mandate that that's recorded, so we're going to assume they're perfect. So just by doing those simple things, they get a score of 63.25 by the time the 10 times the multiplier and sum them all up comes to 63.25, which, as you can see down on the bottom table, fits into the 1.5 star score of range of 60-75. Another example to demonstrate how this worked is perfect recording isn't actually expected as part of it. We're aware that calves leave the system throughout their lives, and this has actually been accounted for in the Completeness of Performance star rating thing. So if we look here at the perfect score of 10, you only have to have over 95% for date of birth, sire and dam recorded. Doesn't have to be 100. And then for the traits, in this one, it's over 90% of it recorded. So we're allowing for the fact that some calves may die, for whatever reason are no longer available for recording. We're accounting for that in that, and you can still get the top score. And then you go on down to the bottom thing where we take that score and convert it to the star rating. You only need 165 out of 200 to qualify for 5. So we've certainly made allowances for, we're dealing with a biological system, a natural system, and things do happen that prevent you from achieving perfection. So we've allowed for that within the Completeness of Performance system. So what can we actually use the Completeness of Performance system for? Excuse me. So we can look at the Completeness of Performance star rating for other herds and get an indication of how much performance data they're collecting on their animals, which gives you an idea of how much trust you're going to put into their EBV. So in a way, it's like looking at EBV accuracy, but you're actually looking at the herd as a whole and not at individual traits. So this could be useful if you're comparing animals from different herds and you're going, right, I want, this herd's got a really high COP, that one doesn't. I might choose to go with the high COP herd because I know they've got the volume of data behind their EBBs. They've got more accuracy. When you're looking at your own herd, it allows you to monitor which traits you're collecting performance data for and those you are not. And it might help you identify some gaps in your data, whether you've got some missing data or whether you've chosen not to record things or things like that. So we've got, talking missing data, we look at this picture here, and it's pretty obvious that there's some missing data here. In 2014, this herd didn't submit any 200-day weights. And there can be multiple reasons for this. They may have chosen not to that year. The scales might have been broke. They might have been sick at the time and unable to do it. And we have this a lot here in Australia, and I presume it happens in your part of the world, they collected the records but forgot to send them into breed plan. And it's great to go, oh, geez, yes, I did record that information. It's not on the system. I better go get it and submit that information. This is another example that we've seen, and this herd, it was a wee bit different. The amount of 200-day weights they submitted halved. And this herd went, when they saw this, oh, geez, I only sent in the 200-day weights for my bulls. I didn't send it in for the heifers. So again, it's a little prompt to look for that missing data. So yeah, causes can include getting to submit the data to breed plan, or that the trait just wasn't actually recorded that year. So how do you improve your completeness of performance star rating? Well, there's no one-size-fits-all solution, and it depends on what you're doing in your herd and what you can do going forward in your herd, and whether you want to do it as well. So we've got an example here. It's a 3.5 star herd. They're recording approximately 100 calves a year. And if we're looking at this summary, and as I said, we've broken things down into trait groups. So they're scoring 19 out of 50 for weight traits, 23 out of 40 for carcass, 38 out of 40 for birth traits, 4 out of 20 for fertility. Other traits currently has no weighting, and it sums up to 134 and gives it a star rating of 5. So we've got a quiz question which Catriona's just put up. In which categories can this herd improve their performance rating? And we'll give you a wee bit of time to fill that out. I hope it's come up for everyone. Yep, I see some results starting to come in. And I believe you can click on multiple. Yeah, it's choose all that apply.
So we might give it another 30 seconds or so, just for the half of you that haven't responded to get those responses in. All right, so we'll give it 10 more seconds. And closing the poll.
So yeah, most people correctly identified that fertility is certainly the biggest opportunity for this herd to improve. It's only 4 out of 20, so it's only got 1/5 of the possible score there. But yeah, there's certainly still opportunities to improve in the others, with the exception really of birth traits. They're almost perfect there at 38 out of 40. So there is room to get the additional 2, obviously, for that birth trait, but yeah, there's there's more scope in others to improve. Other traits, yes, you can certainly, even though it's got no weighting, that they're currently not getting any score there. So they could also improve that, even though it's getting no score. It's not counting to the. It doesn't mean there's no room to improvement, that there's no weighting. It just means it's got no weighting in the rating system.
And the animal details as well at 49 out of 50. There's a slight spot to improve, but certainly if they were going to be concentrating their efforts somewhere, that's probably not the section to be doing so.
Cool. Oh, well, move on. So, yeah, there we go. Written down as well. And those are the three where the most progress can be made. So we've got another quiz question here. How can this herd improve its recording of weight traits? So we've got the four post-birth weights there on the screen, the graphs for them, and you can see what's going on. So Catriona's put the quiz up for you. Ah. So the questions are covering the data. Catriona, can you move them to one side on the screen? Or is that not possible?
Well, mine's on my other screen, so I'll just move them and see. Does that make any difference on anyone else's screen?
Yeah, I've got it on the screen as well. So
Yeah, I don't know if me moving it helps.
and unfortunately, me moving it has taken it off my screen. So I'll be relying on you to summarize, Catriona.
Okay, well, we might give it another couple of seconds and then we'll end it there.
It's back again.
You can see it.
Yeah, I can see it again.
Cool.
Right. Well, thank you for your responses there. So yeah, most people can clearly see that mature cow weight is a trait that this herd has not recorded, and certainly there's certainly scope to improve recording the other traits as well. There's the odd missing year. There's some incomplete recording of traits, but we also, as we stated earlier, we know that as animals get older, more and more leave the herd and are unavailable for recording. So we often see a trend like this where there's really high percentages at 200 day, and it drops down at 400 and 600 as more and more animals leave the herd and aren't available for recording. So this won't be a quiz, but so this is a carcass trait one. So, I mean, it's a pretty simple one. How can it improve the recording of their carcass traits? Well, they only did it really in 1 year. So actually doing it would be a good start in most years. Looking at it from a fertility trait perspective, we can see that they've been doing it, scrotal sizes, they've been doing that pretty well, but days to calving has been neglected. That's the recording of the female fertility data for days to calving has not been done very often. And some of you may be wondering why these graphs entering 2016, they're an old example, but the same principle applies for modern ones as well. The other thing about scrotal size to see there, they're getting 1 year they got just above 60%, but most of the time they're hovering around that 50% stage. That's 50% of male calves, so it's not assuming that you can record heifers, though you'll be surprised how often we see that data sent into us. So what that means is that they're only recording about 50% of their male calves, and it suggests they're probably waiting to sale ages before recording their scrotal size, by which time they've already heavily culled their bull crop. Now, the thing about scrotal size is you can record it at a younger ages. In fact, we recommend that you record it around the time the bull calves are going through puberty, because the measure of scrotal size is a measure of really early maturing animals. So we want to see the bull calves at around puberty, where some are pubertal, some aren't. There's going to be a difference in their scrotal size as a consequence, and that's what we're looking to detect. So if you do it at a younger age, there's going to be more calves on farm still at that stage, and you're going to get a more complete picture of what's going on in your herd and the genetics of your herd. So to improve your COP star rating, so get your most recent Completeness of Performance report, and identify which categories you don't score highly in. So, and in the categories you don't score highly, identify what traits you're recording, but you may actually be able to increase the number of animals that you record, or identify traits that you're not currently recording, but you're actually interested in recording in the future that you may be able to start. And then consider what management changes you can make on farm to enable you to start recording those traits. So animal details, just going through some of these examples, making sure all your calves have a sire, dam and date of birth recorded with your breed society. That tends to be a no-brainer for most herds, but not all. Register all of your calves. Don't just register only those that are born alive. Dead calves are extremely informative to us, particularly if it's as a result of calving difficulties. They're extremely informative to the calving EBVs as a consequence. So important that you can record them. We have some herds that try to just register the male calves they intend to keep as bulls for sale, and anything that they decide early in life is going to become a steer, they don't register. That creates a biased data set, which we covered quite a lot actually in the last webinar, so I won't go over it again. But so recording all of your animals is extremely important. For weight traits, if you're actually going to cull animals, so say you're getting to weaning and you've already identified some of your calves that you're going to cull, well, before you cull them and send them away, actually record as many traits as you can for them. So, for instance, record your 200-day weight while they're still in that one mob, and they're all there, including the culls, before you send them, take some out and send them away. Taking an early weight can help with that. So, for instance, 200-day weight, you can, once your calves reach 80 days of age, you can actually start recording 200-day weight. So you might choose to do that at a vaccination stage before weaning, or that kind of thing is an option. There's pregnant heifers, where you have some breeders who have told us that, I don't take a 600-day weight on my heifers because they're pregnant. Well, you can still do it, and there's multiple ways of doing that. If you can take them while they're still in the first stages of their pregnancy, the fetus and associated amniotic fluid, etc., is still relatively insignificant. So early pregnancy, you don't need to worry about pregnancy, the weight of the pregnancy. Later in pregnancy, as long as you've got heifers that are at roughly the same stage of pregnancy, same age of pregnancy, they're going to have roughly the same weight from that pregnancy, so you can actually still compare them. However, if you've got some dry heifers and some that are pregnant, they need to be placed in different management groups, so that we aren't comparing a dry heifer whose weight will not be due to pregnancy versus a obviously pregnant one who will be. And mature cow weight, 200-day weight on their calves. I earlier this week was having a discussion with a breeder who was again concerned about the effect of pregnancy on his mature cows when he weans his calves. And the recommendation was, again, if you can take an early 200-day weight on your calves and do your mature cows at the same time, you're reducing that effect and giving us valuable data. Carcass traits, try and collect your carcass trait scan data on more males. Don't wait till you've sorted out what your sale bull team is and just do them. Try and do your whole cohort to avoid that data bias of selected animals only being recorded. And collecting scan records on heifers is extremely valuable. It is arguable that heifers are actually more valuable to scan for carcass traits than bulls. And that comes down to the fact that they tend to have actually more fat cover and more variation in fat cover. And they tend to be less selected than bulls as well. So they're more representative of your whole herd as well. Birth traits, recording birth weight, and we will say where possible there. We do acknowledge that there are times when it's not advisable to record birth weight, and despite my current body shape, I did get very fit some years back being chased around a ute by cows on a regular basis while trying to get birth weight. So if it's dangerous, birth weights aren't that important to us. We'd much prefer you fit and healthy. Calving difficulty scores, something you can do purely by observation. You don't need equipment. And AI dates for your AI calves, extremely important for the gestation length EBV. So that is one that is important to do. Scrotal circumference measurements. Again, we were talking about how, if you're taking them around that puberty time is the ideal time. So not only because the trait's more accurate, but you should have more animals on farm at that stage. And to consider recording female fertility data. Most herds do have records of when their bulls go out, any pregnancy test results and the like. And if you've got that kind of information, that's all you need for days to calving. And there's a lot of information on that on the Breed Plan website, and we talked about it in the last webinar as well. So we strongly encourage people to record female fertility data, and we find that most people actually tend to have all that data there. They just never got round to submitting it. Other traits, docility EBVs are something we can calculate, and required docility scores taken on calves. And again, doing both sexes is advisable on this. So trying to get the majority of calves you can. And like puberty, it's actually one that's better taken at a younger age, because with docility scoring, we're after an animal's natural reaction to humans. We're not after, if they've been through the yards half a dozen times already, they've got somewhat used to you, that they've learnt how to respond to going through the yards. That actually dampens their natural responses to us. We want to see, ideally, their response the first time they've gone through the yards to get the most variation and for docility. So we've got an example here. So example of it's an Australian herd that's got around 170 calves a year, and this herd contacted Catriona in 2018 and was discussing breed plan. He was quite disappointed actually at that stage with some of the results he was getting. And one of the things he realized was that his recording was not up to spec. And he was only a 3-star herd at that time, and he was missing some key traits that were important to him. And so in 2018, it was based on the 2012 to 2016 drops. So again, it's that 5-year period that we use for the star rating that starts 2 years prior to when you're looking at the record. And, there we go. 6 years later, he's managed to get his COP star rating up to 5 stars. And we look at how he's done this, and we look across, since, 2012, it's really obvious. It's no one trait group that he's improved. It's all of them. They've all increased, really with the exception of animal details. It's remained pretty constant. That's, again, coming back to most of the animal details are determined by your breed society as compulsory anyway, so they don't tend to change. But he's improved everywhere else to increase his completeness of performance star rating. And you can also see in 2019 when he made some differences straight away after talking to Catriona, and for that individual year he was straight away over 5-star. But for that single year, but over the 5 years, it actually took him until 2024 before his star rating passed 5 years, because it was the average of those 5 years. And even though 2019 was over, he was being dragged backwards by 2018, 2017, and 2016 as well. So, and when he got to later on, the average rose up sufficiently, and he got a 5-star COP star rating and was extremely excited when it happened. Literally within minutes of getting it, he was on the phone to Catriona thanking her for what she had done to help him get there. I don't know if you want to add anything more to that, Catriona. You were the one involved.
Not really. I guess it just shows it does take some time, but it's certainly possible. And the next slide will show some of the measures that we discussed with this herd and he put in place to help him get there. There were certainly lots of conversations over the phone about how he could improve his performance recording.
Yeah, thank you for that. And as Catriona mentioned, so some of the things he did, the examples of what he did. So he was only recording, he was culling his calves out and not recording them before they were culled. So he was only recording 40 to 60% of the drop, and he ended up getting up to 95%. 600-day weights, he was only doing males. And then by doing his heifers as well, that rose dramatically. And I must say, this is a brilliant example of, this is a 5-star herd, and you can see from the current list there how he's not perfect, but he's still getting a 5-star herd, because, perfect is often impossible. He started recording mature cow weights. He was only doing his bulls for scanning, and he also started doing more of his bull calves as well. Birth weights was something that he was particularly concerned about, but he wasn't actually recording and started doing. Scrotals, doing them earlier enabled him to do more, and he's now recording his female fertility data, because he had also realised that was an issue that he wanted to address in his animals as well. And what you don't actually see on the previous graph, if I go back to it, is he actually added historical data so he had recorded the data, had it on file at home, but he never actually sent it into breed plan. Now, because it's been submitted, it is actually appearing in this graph, because we've done it currently so that historic data is included. So some of these earlier years would have even been lower than what is depicted there. But that historic data has come in, and we will accept historic data at any time and put it on the system. It makes no difference to us when it goes on.
And I guess one thing to add with that historic data is it can be quite time consuming to sit down and find not so much weight traits necessarily, but things like female fertility. He was going back and finding all of his female joining records. So we would advise, if you do want to put historic data on, that you start with the most recent drops and work your way backwards.
Yeah.
Don't start back with like 20 or 2000 and work forwards. Start with the 2022 and work backwards, for example.
Yeah. And that way you're getting the most relevant to your current population on first. So, yeah. So, that was an Australian example, but we've certainly, from those 5 UK breeds that have the Completeness Performance product, we can see that there is a number of herds from them that are also achieving that 5-star rating. So it's certainly quite possible to achieve, and you can see that on the screen here. So we actually got to the end of it. We're not running as long as we have in our other webinars, but the Completeness Performance thing, it allows you to monitor the volume of data that you're submitting to BRI plan, and that volume of data is what determines EBV accuracy from the genetic evaluation. It's useful for identifying any missing data that you thought you had submitted, and it helps you identify any opportunities to increase future recording. It is possible to achieve 5-star status. You don't have to be perfect to get 5-star status, and there's 34 herds have achieved that in 2024, and it's never too late to work towards it. And if you have any questions, any doubt, please reach out to the BRI plan processing staff, processing centres, and if they can't help you, they will contact us, and we can certainly help out then. So any further questions? We're here and can help with you.
So we did have one question come in. I'm just not quite sure what sort of notifications the question was in regards to. So it was, does the register include notifications? Charles, if you could elaborate, we'll be able to answer that for you. And while we're waiting for any questions that anyone has to come in, I will make the quiz or the feedback survey live, and we would really appreciate you filling it out for us.
I see. So Charles has replied, with birth notifications are free, registrations are expensive. So that comes down to how your breed society or processing centre is handling things. I know that does vary between breed societies, and so we don't use birth notifications down here, but some breed societies certainly do allow you to register dead calves for free. So it's probably effectively the same thing. So it's probably just terminology more than anything else. So I can understand where you're coming from now, that if you've got the birth notifications for a dead calf, that as long as it's going on the system, it's being accounted for, and that is desirable.
All right. Well, we don't seem to have had any further questions come in, so we might. Oh, one new message. No, no further questions come in. So we might leave things there. Thank you, everyone who has filled out the poll, and hopefully we'll see you in a fortnight for the next one.